Having updated the software side of our Traxxas X-MAXX, it's time to look into refining suspension with a couple of tweaks and upgrades. The huge shocks and springs are quite effective out of the box, although you'll probably want to refine the setup according to your driving style. So we'll get straight into it and begin by removing the wheels from all four corners of the vehicle. Now you don't necessarily have to do this, although with the size of these things I like to get them out the way. Next we can start removing each shock by removing both top and bottom hinge pin screws. Bearing in mind the top and bottom screw sizes are different, so take care not to mix them up, before sliding the hinge pins out and releasing the complete shock unit. With all four now removed, we can concentrate on these by starting to disassemble somewhat. First we'll need to remove the springs, easily done by removing the single screw holding the spring retainer in place, after which the retainer can be removed, releasing the entire spring. Again, repeat across all four units. I'll be replacing the oil in all four shock units. The truck comes with 30 weight, but I'll be going with 40 weight at the front and 50 in the rear, and I'll refine later if need be. If you're looking to do something similar, you'll need to take care with keeping the front and rear sets of shocks together. Don't get them mixed up once filled, as you'll have different weights in different corners once mounted. Begin by removing the shock cap, and with the shaft extended, remove all oil from within the shock. This is also a good opportunity to clean your shocks and check the shock shaft, although as this is a new truck, it's nothing I need to do right now. Next, with the shaft fully extended, proceed to half fill the shock with your chosen oil, and then slowly move the shaft up, down and rotate to either side, keeping the piston under the oil at all times. The idea here is to release any trapped air that may be held beneath the piston. After a minute or so of moving the piston around, let the shock sit for a while, allowing any remaining air bubbles to rise to the top. After a final movement and once sure all trapped air has been released, proceed to fill the remainder of the shock to the top, leaving a few millimeter gap for the membrane in the top cap to fit into. When tightening the shock cap, a tiny hole in the cap expels any excess oil as it's tightened into place. And that's it, the shock has now been prepared, and the same process can be replicated across each of the remaining units. After the shocks have been filled with fluid, check that each shock has the same amount of rebound. The shocks should fully compress and rebound slowly the same amount. If the shocks don't fully compress or rebound too fast, they may have too much fluid. If they have no rebound, they probably have too little fluid. The key is to have the same amount of rebound in each pair of shocks. The last step involves adding your choice of springs. For my uses, I've decided to go a little stiffer than the stock springs, with a set of 1.4 rate springs on the front and a 1.5 rated set on the rear. Again, taking care to place the correct springs onto the correct pair of shocks, it's a matter of sliding them into place. But before I do that, I'll be adding these, a set of Full Force RC shock socks. Not only do Full Force RC carry some great designs, they're a perfect fit too, sliding tightly onto the spring, and tucking any excess into the spring at either end, before sliding back into place on the shock unit itself, and reattaching the spring retainer, and the retainer screw. This helps keep dust and debris away from the shock shaft, keeping it clean so that it continues to slide smoothly in and out of the shock, providing some great protection as well as adding a great design feature. I'll leave a link in the video description below. Complete the process with the remaining units and we're ready to reinstall these back onto the truck. So with the shock in place, insert both top and bottom hinge pins, as well as the hinge screws, keeping the pins in place. It's as simple as that. Repeat the process on all four corners of the vehicle and that's the installation complete. Finally, with the wheels reinstalled, it's a good idea to adjust ride height using the threaded collars on each shock as and how you prefer, the aim being to keep the suspension arms slightly above being parallel to the ground. Upgrade complete. Shock oil replaced front and rear, springs replaced, and shock socks added for that added design as well as protection. Not only do they look great, they should perform equally as well. Join me in the next video where we'll look to add some RPM parts for added strength.